Hi YouTube. Okay, this is Colin once again with part 2 of the rebuttal to Sean, aka Venom Fang X. We left off with the prophecies of Isaiah. You read, and I'm not going to read it again because I don't have enough time for that, but it's Isaiah the end of chapter 52, and then all of chapter 53 regarding the suffering servant. And John, you did a beautiful job of reading it out loud. However, there's a couple things that you said at the conclusion, your little commentary at the end of reading the actual chapters, that I was kind of humored. You know, first you said that there's a resurrection mentioned. Well, since I don't want to take up all my time here on YouTube reading it all over again, I encourage people to get themselves a copy of any contemporary English version of the Bible, or get any Jewish Tanakh and read the verses for yourselves. And you said there's a resurrection. I found no resurrection. So please point that out to me. Tell me what part, which verse in the chapter says resurrection. I'd like to know. Thank you. And then I was also humored because then you said that this suffering servant, who you think is Jesus Christ, died for the sins of Israel. Because, not Jeremiah, excuse me, Isaiah says he died for my people. For my people. For the sins of the Jews, of Israel. Israel. And according to you, and according to most Christians that I know, Jesus died for the sins of everyone. Everyone in the world. Myself, you, Shaw, my friend Devin right over here, everybody in the world. He died for the sins of everybody. Yet you yourself in your own video said that the suffering servant, according to Isaiah, only died for the sins of his people, for the Jews. So that's something you're going to have to reconcile with. Then we go to Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10. And you, again, have an issue with translation, as we talked about in my first video. And you have an issue with context, Sean. I'm kind of disappointed. This is something that can easily be seen as being completely out of context. You start with Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10. And you say that, but I will fill the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem with a spirit of pity and compassion, and they shall lament to me. See, you read in the KJV, it says they will lament of me. Difference of one word. It says to me, to God, about those who were slain. Not just one person, a group. Wailing over them. Not him, them. As over a favorite son, and showing bitter grief as over a firstborn. And it goes on to say other things, which I must confess has really nothing to do with the context right away. And again, just to make sure, I am reading from this book, the JPS, Hebrew English Tanakh. And then you skip to 13, verse 6 of Zechariah, where it says, and if he is asked, meaning this person who you think is Jesus, what are those, in the KJV it says, wounds on your hands. In the Hebrew, it says, sores on your back. He will reply, from being beaten in the homes of my friends. But why start there, Sean? Why are you afraid to go to the beginning of the first verse of chapter 13 of Zechariah, where it says, in that day a fountain shall open to the house of David, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, for purging and cleansing. In that day too, declares the Lord of hosts, I will erase the very names of the idols from the land. They shall not be uttered anymore. And I will also make the prophets, and it says in the Hebrew, in the English, prophets, and the unclean spirit vanish from the land. If anyone prophesies thereafter, his own father and mother, who brought him into the world, will say to him, you shall die, for you have lied in the name of the Lord. And his own father and mother, who brought him into the world, will put him to death when he prophesies. In that day, every prophet will be ashamed of the visions he had when he prophesied. In order to deceive, he will not wear a hairy mantle. He will declare, I am not a prophet. I am a tiller of the soil, you see. I was plied with the red stuff from my youth on. And if he is asked, what are those sores on your back? He will reply, from being beaten in the homes of my friends. So this isn't talking about the Messiah. This is talking about after Jerusalem cleans up its act, and God will say these people are liars, these prophets who claim to be prophets, has nothing to do with the Messiah at all. And one more thing, Sean, I forgot to mention about the suffering servant in Isaiah. Also, reading from the Learning Bible, there's a great subtext, very brief, that mentions what scholars think the suffering servant is all about. Very fascinating. Sorry, I'm jumping topic here. Please forgive me. But I forgot about this. If we go back to Isaiah, if you're following me along here, Isaiah chapter 52, we read the servant songs in Isaiah. And it says that the servant songs, it says scholars have different opinions about who the servant might be. When the song was first written, some believe the servant must have been an important royal or religious individual in Israel's history who had the power to bring about change, such as King Josiah or Hezekiah, or the prophet Jeremiah or Isaiah himself. Other scholars believe the servant was actually referenced to the people of Israel as a whole, meaning that Israel, if you go back to chapter 41 of Isaiah, of the book of Isaiah, it is referencing at times either Jacob as named Israel or the people of Israel as a whole, and reducing them as one person. And then it goes on to say that some do believe that it is the Messiah, but it is mostly a Christ for the Christian reference. And then so there's many different interpretations, many different translations of the text, not just one clear-cut idea. Let's see here. All right, still have a little bit of time. This is another kind of humorous. I'm also a history geek, Sean, and I almost cracked up when you said this. You mentioned in Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? And you mentioned that this is a prophecy regarding crucifixion. And you read it, and I give you credit for that. However, you made a very interesting historical error. You said this psalm was written by David before crucifixion had been invented. Sean, I hate to inform you, but the Egyptians, the Phoenicians, the Assyrians were using crucifixion before and during King David's time. Anyway, this is the end of part 2, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize. We'll carry this on with part 3. Thank you for staying with me. Goodbye.